All right, we are live. Thank you, everyone. This is our monthly show. For this month, we're going to be talking about suicide prevention and also just bringing everyone to the awareness of how we can prevent suicide and how we can, um, come together as a community to eradicate, people actually committing suicide if we can. I have with me today Sonia Navarro. I'm going to have her introduce herself from DBH, Department of Behavioral Services in San Bernardino. So please introduce yourself to our audience, Sonia.
Yes, thank you so much. I really appreciate the invitation and being able to be here to speak a little bit about suicide prevention. I think this is an important conversation. My name is Sonia Navarro, as you heard. I am a program manager for the Office of Prevention and Early Intervention. That includes the Office of Suicide Prevention as well, and it is with the Department of Behavioral Health with San Bernardino County. I've been now with San Bernardino County for over 30 years, but I've spent the last approximately 20 years now here with the
Wow.
Department of Behavioral Health. So I have had an opportunity to grow and learn much about mental health services in our county and everything that we're doing to be able to provide those services to the community.
Well, thank you. Wow, that's 20 years. Did you say over 20 years?
I believe so. I'm bad with
Wow.
math, but I think it's about 20 years.
Yeah, thank you for being here so much. So we are live on a lot of platforms, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, etc., etc. So and then this people will also watch the after show, and
Okay.
so we're hoping we can get a lot of people to click on this and actually learn some things from you. So when we're talking about our topic today is breaking myths surrounding, and saving lives. All the myths that surround suicide. Can we just talk about some of those today?
Some
Right?
of those myths, yes.
Yeah, some of those myths that you've heard in since you've been doing this for a while. Can we identify some of them and then just talk to them?
Yes, yes, absolutely. So, one of the biggest myths that I'm sure some of you have heard is the myth that uh, talking about suicide puts that idea into their head. That is a
Mm-hmm.
myth. Talking about suicide does not put the idea into someone's head. And I like to use a lot of examples. So bear with me because I like to put things in context. But I always say it's like when you tell your kids that it would be a good idea to clean their room. It doesn't typically happen. It doesn't put the idea in their head and they don't do it. So rather, in fact, it's actually important to have open conversations so that we can prevent it. So talking about it actually helps and doesn't hurt.
Absolutely. Thank you for that big that's the one of the biggest ones, right? It's like if you talk about it, then you're going to think about it. But you're saying that's not true, because someone who wants to commit suicide or who is trying to make an attempt is going to do it regardless of either you talk about it or you don't. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes. But again, the importance is to really to have those conversations and to talk about it, uh, to normalize it so that we can talk about it and we make it okay for people to talk about it and ask about it in different ways, to be able to connect those people to the appropriate resource and to
Resources.
get them the help that they need. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So, what are some of the risk factors that we need to consider? What are some of the risk factors? Somebody's listening to us and they don't know what to look out for. What are some of the
Mhm.
risk factors and what are some of the signs early on that we should consider, that we should be looking out for? The audience would like to know that.
Yes, absolutely. Risk factors, can be like life throwing us some curveballs, right? We have some mental health struggles. Sometimes there's trauma. Sometimes there's substance abuse. Those can be like storm clouds that make everything feel a little gray. But recognizing those types of risk factors is key. So we want to think of, our mental health as being kind of like the forecaster of our mental health. And when you see that something, a storm perhaps, like unfortunately the hurricanes we're seeing, when those storms are coming, we prepare in advance.
Yeah,
So risk factors come in many different ways, shape, forms, and manners, just like warning signs. Sometimes if your loved one or someone you care about seems withdrawn, or you see that their mood shifts faster than than you're normally used to, that's a sign to check in. There's a long list of things. You and I, Dr. Marino, could spend probably hours listing all the different warning signs, but it's really about paying attention and offering a lifeline before someone drifts too far. And that's key, because warning signs aren't always what you would imagine that they are. I think people sometimes feel that because someone is sad or because someone is withdrawn, but it doesn't always happen. It can be that someone is showing us in a different way that they're struggling. So there's many different ways, and it's really just about paying attention.
Paying attention to changes too. I mean, if somebody who used to be really extroverted, or at least made connections with you, is no longer connecting with you, then you want to make sure that you reach out to somebody, ask how people are doing. I always say, our human connection is the best prevention to these things. Like, are you connected to that person? Can you call them and say, hey, what's going on? I haven't seen you in 2 days. I haven't heard from you. Is there anything, could I help in any way? If somebody's experienced a whole bunch of maybe a loss, losses of somebody significant in their lives, that could really become something that we need to watch out for the ones who are bereaved, the ones who are left behind. Not saying that everybody who loses someone is going to attempt a suicide, but someone who is severely depressed. I always say, like, when you're thinking about suicidal ideation, so the major depression and suicidal ideation are two peas in a pod. It's almost like they're going to think it. They're going to think it. That's normal. That's kind of normal. But it becomes an issue if they're not getting help, right? If there's no hope. So what do you think about hope? Because when we are hopeless, when in a state of despair, that is a really bleak place to be. So how do we encourage hope? How do we bring hope into people's lives?
I think really it's about kind of, promoting hope is one of our campaigns within San Bernardino County. Our suicide prevention campaign that we came up with last year is actually promote hope. Let's talk, right? And that's really a key way of being able to promote hope, is through conversation. And like you mentioned, depression and suicide can sometimes go hand in hand, but depression manifests itself differently in people. And that's really about that connection that we have. And I'm glad you said that, because, we have to have that support around us. Friends or family, maybe a therapist or two. There's no limit to how many therapists we can have, right? And so these are all things that we do. These conversations are what help to promote hope. We want folks to understand, we want our loved ones to understand that really hope is coming from a caring point in our hearts, and we want them to be able to support them in the best way we can.
Absolutely. I mean, when you're talking about this support, one of the greatest risk factors is a lack of support. When you don't have a support system, that can get you in a hopeless state. It can make you feel isolated. Trauma-informed care tells us that you need at least 6 people around you, about 6 people, are 3 professional, 3 personal, that would surround you and help bear, help you in this journey of life. And so it is not making sure that we are building those support systems, I think is key in this. Who are your support system? Because I see a lot of people who say things like, they say things like, "Oh, I don't have anybody. There's no one who is helping me. There's no one who is doing this for me." What would you say to someone like that who is saying, "I don't know. I don't have six people. I don't even have one. I'm here by myself. Maybe I'm homeless. Maybe I am just struggling. I just went through a divorce. I just this." So this sense of this independence, and even in the Western world we have this sense of I have to do things by myself. This is just me, myself, and I. How do we balance that and create this family of, or this wall of support around us? How do we do that?
Very good question, because I think supports also manifest in different ways, and maybe not in ways that we traditionally think. Like you said, there's the thought that you should have a group of 6 people that support you, and that's an excellent idea. I think we should surround ourselves with those people that support us, our family, our friends, our loved ones, those types of supports. But like one of my supports personally, if I can be honest here, is I have a little dog, a pet. I have a dog.
Absolutely.
Believe it or not, that little guy is my support. And on days when I'm feeling a little down, or I feel like I just need something there, a support, he comes, he sits on my lap, and he listens to what I have to say without judgment, or but things like that. You don't traditionally think that pets would be a support, but they are a support.
They sure
And
are.
then and there are also system level supports that we have. So for instance, 988 is our crisis and suicide prevention lifeline that is available all throughout the nation. And that is
Can you say that again so that people know can hear that?
Yes, 988.
Okay.
So it is our national suicide and crisis lifeline. They are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And you can call or text 988, either one, and you'll get someone on the other line that is your support. And so that is always a support that you can count on. But it's really about looking around and seeing what those traditional and non-traditional supports are that help you with your mental health and well-being.
Absolutely. Now, just to clarify, is it 988? Is it national? Is it national, or is it just for San Bernardino?
No, this is national. So if you were visiting, I like to use this example. If I was visiting my friends out of state, and I noticed that one of my friends might be struggling with thoughts of suicide, and I wanted to help connect them to someone who can help, I would help them call 988, because they are available, and then they'll provide you with resources from that area.
Very good. I'm just
Yes, it's an
typing this
excellent.
here. Suicide support phone number. All right, 988, you all, 988. So make sure that you're hearing this and that you are paying attention to it. So if you need, especially, we're talking about students that have returned to school now, and we know that even in our county, just right here in my city in Rancho Cucamonga, we just lost a student in one of the high schools who committed suicide. And so this becomes very pertinent that we should talk about this. So for young people, you're listening to us today, just know that there is support on. It's just 988 instead of 911, 988. And dial it, and you will get somebody that will support you through this. You don't have to be alone. You do not have to be alone, because there are people who are ready and willing to help you. All right. So I'm glad that you shared that resource with us, Sonia.
Yes. Can I add just a quick side note to that too,
please.
as well? Is I know this is being broadcast, wide. And so the 988 also has folks that speak Spanish. So if your loved one speaks Spanish and wants to communicate in Spanish, there's an option for that. And there's also an option specifically for veterans, that they can speak to someone who can understand the needs of the veteran community a little bit better. So you'll have those options to be able, if you're from one of those communities or feel more comfortable, they
Mhm.
have some options available.
Absolutely. You heard that. Veterans, there's an option for you if you speak Spanish. Is it only Spanish that has an option, or there are other languages? Or is it right now it's just Spanish?
It's just Spanish that I know of for sure that has an
Okay.
option, but I am certain that if you are connected to someone on the other line, they would work to find someone who could help interpret.
Okay, absolutely. All right. Okay. See, that one question took us to a lot of
Yes.
places. Let's talk about protective factors. We've talked about a support system, right? We've talked about support system, and we've basically we talked about support system. What are some other protective factors that we could put in place aside from the support group?
I'm glad you said that because it's exactly what we're doing here today with you. By you having invited me here and offering this space,
Yeah.
we're talking about it. We are promoting our health, our mental health and well-being here by discussing the importance of how essential it is. Self-care isn't selfish; it's actually essential, and that's one of the things that we can do. It's about building habits that keep us strong for the long haul. So that looks differently for different people. We're not all the same, we're all different. And having different support systems, having an environment, a protective environment where it's okay to talk about it and it's okay to say, I'm not okay and I need help. That's what we're doing here today, and starting and normalizing these conversations and saying it's okay to make suicide something that we say out loud and not whisper like
Mm,
we have been for many years.
yeah. I love what you said. You said it's okay to say I'm not okay. It's okay to say I need help. It's because sometimes it's cultural, sometimes it's religious reasons. People don't talk, there's shame around it. But we need to begin to just demystify this and just begin to unveil this thing that's happening to a whole bunch of people. So what we just need to make sure that that there's no shame in this. If you need help, get the help that you need. I always talk about the five fundamentals. The five fundamentals are just the basic self-care, because Sonia, you talked about self-care. You have to take care of yourself. Nobody can take care of you better than you can take care of you. So make sure that you become priority. So those five fundamentals, I say, do your breath work, know how to breathe properly, because once we are stressed and in places of of a high toxic stress or traumas, we forget to breathe properly, and you need to do that, because then it would kind of help you regulate your nervous system. So that's the first one. The second one is nutrition. Eat properly. Food is medicine. Food is the body's is medicine for your body. So you have to consider what you're eating. You have to consider what you're putting into this body. Is it healing me or is it making me sick? I always say, if you can pronounce the names, you probably should not be putting it in your body. You probably shouldn't be ingesting it. If it's just read labels, make sure that you be intentional is the word. Be attentive to it, and so that and for nutrition. The third thing is hydration. Your body needs water. Your brain needs water to create all those chemicals that it needs, for it to be for it to create serotonin and dopamine. It needs water so that it can do it effectively, and it can do it in quantity and quality. Your brain needs that. So make sure you're drinking exactly. Make sure you're hydrating. Hydrate. Because if you are dehydrated, for example, your body cannot effectively create serotonin levels that you need. And then, there's low levels of serotonin, high levels of depression. So make sure you hydrate yourself. And I'm not talking about juices, I'm not talking about sodas, I'm not talking about water. Water is healing. Always have water, right? Number 4 is movement. We store stresses and traumas in our bodies. So please make sure that you're moving 30 to 40 minutes, 3 to 4 times a week, or 4 to 5 times a week, however you want to do it. But please make sure that you're moving. We talk our traumas, we eat our traumas, we drink our traumas, but we don't move the trauma out of us. There's a trauma shake where you actually move, you need to get rid of this negative energy that is in you, and it has to be intentional. So please make sure that we're doing these things. And number 5 is sleep. Those are the 5 fundamentals. Sleep is the body's work. And so when we sleep, the body is now doing all it needs to do to recalibrate, to reprocess, to re-regulate your body, so that then it's almost like taking your car to be serviced. But you do this every night. So making sure that we're intentional about our sleep, that we actually put thought into it. And those 5 things, when we do them, at least we're making sure that we're caring for ourselves. We can add a lot more to them, I'm sure. But I'd say these are basic fundamentals that everyone should be doing. This is just a lifestyle change. What are your thoughts about this? And you can always add more to this, Sonia.
Oh, absolutely. We could sit here all day and talk about all the self-care. I love what you said, every bit of it. I will share from personal experience that recently I heeded to trying to get some more sleep, getting to bed at a decent hour, and I have noticed a tremendous change in my mental health and well-being. I'm happier. I'm not as stressed. I started drinking more water. I exercise every day, even on the busiest of days. And Dr. Marino, you know that our days can be so busy from start to finish. And even on the busiest days, I'd look for 30 minutes to go for a walk, either on a treadmill at home or around the block here where I work, and bring people with me to go walk and everything. And so you're absolutely right. Doing those small things is how we recharge every night. Like you put your Apple Watch, on the little charger, it's refreshing, it's resting, it's getting water, it's getting energy. We need to recharge like we recharge our phones and our Apple Watches and all our electronics. We need that because it helps our mental health and well-being.
And we do those things religiously, right? We at night, you put your Apple Watch, you put it on the thing, you charge your battery, your phones. We don't forget to do those things, but we don't forget to take care of we forget to take care of ourselves. Especially, yes. I want to talk to those people who have what we call the Messiah complex, who are the please and appease people. You're constantly doing for others. You're the yes person. You say yes to everything, but the only person you don't say yes to is yourself. We give you permission today to say yes to yourself, because if you don't say yes to yourself, you will burn out. You can experience compassion fatigue. You could experience vicarious trauma, etc., etc. A lot of things will happen that we don't want to happen, right? And so please, if you're the one that is constantly doing for everybody but not yourself, today we're encouraging you to take a look at who you are. If you continue driving your car and you don't service it and you don't put gasoline and whatever, what is going to happen? It's going to break down. So that is when people say, oh, they have a crisis, they broke down. We don't want you to break down. We want everyone to start living this life that is doable. It is well designed for your wellness. It is well designed for your restoration. It is well designed for your healing. And when we have those, then we find out that we begin to reduce the rates of suicide in our different nations. Especially, we're talking to those who are listening to us right now. Now, I want to talk about environments. Environments are very important, the environment. Now, what are some of the environments, and I want specific examples here, Sonia, if you can give it to us. What are some of the specific environmental factors that we need that can actually contribute to someone thinking of suicide attempts or etc., or even thinking about it? So let's look at environmental factors. Basically, I want to look at the homes. I want to look at, the places of work. What are some things that we should, what are some risk factors is what I'm looking for.
Yeah, that's it links a lot to our social determinants of health. Those risk factors, those things that the environmental factors
Mhm.
can be many. So like sometimes, like you said, it could be related to employment. Sometimes it can be related to finances. Sometimes it can be related to family. It can be related to housing. It can be related to all of these different environmental pieces, uh, where we live sometimes, how close are we to services that we can access? Although I think as a society in general, we're getting better at creating those access points, regardless of where you live, because we have the luxury of some technology now that can connect us where we didn't have that 10 years ago even, and we can connect those. But those are all environmental things. It's what's happening in our life outside of what's happening right here and now. I hope that answers your question a little
It,
bit.
it does. I mean, I want us to take it a little bit further in terms of, let's take the homes for example. Let's take
Okay.
the homes for example. If you have a home where there is a lot of conflict, if you have a home where there's no structure in terms of when you're going to get your food, if you have a home where maybe parents are working and they're not really in the home with the thing, or they're very overprotective and don't allow the child to do what needs to be done. If you have domestic violence in the home, if because when we think of domestic violence, we know that, oh yeah, that is a traumatic experience. But when you're overprotective also, that could also be what is called a type 2 adverse experience, right? And so I
Mhm.
want to take a look at what's happening in homes and how we can create homes where we are actually able to create a place where people are nourished. People are nourished in the home, and the home is not the dangerous place for our young ones, or even the spouses who are in that home. That's what I want to focus on that.
Yes, yes, no, you're absolutely right. Is unfortunately we don't know what's happening in someone's home, and what struggles they have when they're there, and that definitely contributes. It doesn't 100% mean that this person is going to consider suicide, but it definitely puts them at a higher risk because
Yeah.
there are some external factors that are affecting their mental health and well-being. And so how do we help that? We
Mhm.
help to be observant. We're the folks in the community that
Absolutely.
we're keeping an eye out for these types of indicators in the community. On a micro level, we're keeping an eye out on those that we see regularly and noticing these indicators that might lead us to want to connect the family to additional resources. Maybe they're in need of some supports to pay their bills, or for housing, or for
Mm.
food, and that might be something that we notice and we can help connect them to. As a society on a macro level, I think it's just to become more aware again of what those indicators might be and how to connect people to services. So it's twofold a little bit, but
Absolutely.
it's up to us. That's how San Diego County, their motto over there is, it's up to us when it comes to taking care of each other and our mental health and well-being, is that we all take a part of it. And so we ask you to take a part in knowing more and being able to identify and connect people to services.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's just talk to parents here.
Mhm.
If you notice anything, if you're noticing that maybe your child is isolating, or maybe they start, maybe drinking more, or they're drinking, or they're using whatever it is not the time to educate them. You don't when somebody's already in the throes of their own traumatic responses, it's not the time to try to educate and tell them what you should be doing and what not to be doing. It's the time to see them. It's the time to see the pain. It's the time to acknowledge that they're suffering. And so because sometimes we just want to go in there and lecture, And that doesn't necessarily work, especially when they're already in pain, when they already need some kind of relief. So making sure that we see them, we acknowledge them, and then we can take it from there. Maybe they can open up to you. Maybe then you can get them the help that Sonia is talking about. These are the things that we as parents we need to do. I always say that if you create this transparency in your relational life with your children, and you have an open door policy that they can come to you, that you're, no matter how busy you are, no matter what things are, I think that we can begin to see things and identify risk factors earlier, because sometimes we don't see it. And should I also add that if the child, there's some category of children that we just assume they're doing well, especially when you have those who are perfectionists, who are getting all the good grades, who are, doing all of the good stuff, and we just think life is okay with them. These are the ones you also want to pay attention to. Don't just assume that your child is okay. Find out if they are okay, and find out. And a lot of the time, it's not even just asking them, "Are you okay?" Or sometimes it's just getting there. If they're playing video games, play with them. Let's go on a walk together. What's going on? Building a relationship. You got to bridge the gap. Bridge that relationship so that you can become someone that they can talk to. And if you're a teenager or a young adult or a child that's listening to us, feel free to connect with somebody on your campus. Feel free to talk to somebody, any adult, anyone that can, and say, "Hey, look, I'm raising my hand. I'm suffering. I'm raising my hand. I need help." It just takes one person to see you, is one person to recognize the pain, and then we can prevent somebody from taking their lives.
I agree. Very good point. Yes, I remember what it was like to be a teenager and how difficult it was, and I can't imagine being a teenager right now. I feel like they're trying to juggle so much in their lives all at once, and social pressures are no joke. And it's tough to be a teenager, and we as parents or as trusted adults in their lives, sometimes it's an aunt or an uncle, have to have those conversations and check in on them and make sure they're okay, whether they outwardly look okay or not. It's still important to check in, and we all want to know, right? We all, I think, like it when someone checks in on us and says,
Yeah.
"Hey, are you okay?" I received a message this morning from one of my friends. She goes, "Oh, I'm just thinking about you. Are you okay?"
Exactly.
And I said, "You know what? Thank you for checking in on me and asking me. Yeah, I am okay, but I appreciate it, and it makes me feel better." And it's part of having and creating those supports, and that people need.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Just checking on people who are the whole idea of mindfulness is about paying attention. That's the whole idea. Is about paying attention to the present. And a lot of the times, we, especially when you've been traumatized in your own way, you haven't resolved those things. You are either in the past or you're in the future. You're never really in the present. So mindfulness is this idea of bringing yourself to the moment and paying attention. If you don't pay attention to what's happening in the home, you might miss it. Pay attention to the gifts that you've been gifted, because we're all having this human experience. We're all having it, right? And this human experience has connected us. And so anyone who you have been privileged to have in your life, no matter who they are, aunties, uncle, friends, this, whatever, church member, this and that you've been privileged to have, please pay attention to them too. So not only pay attention to yourself, pay attention to what's going on around you. Maybe we'll begin to see clearly and begin to understand that we can change somebody's life just by paying attention, but just by seeing them. Now, Sonia, I want to, because I think we're over. We only have a few more minutes.
Okay.
So let's talk about the person who is watching or who's going to watch this, who has already lost someone. All right, they've already lost someone to suicide. I want us to talk talk to them. What can they do? How can they feel better? And also to address some, maybe maybe it could be cultural, it could be religious, um, conversations when people say that, well, if you've committed suicide, you've committed a sin. And so some people won't even bury you properly, and they won't talk about the person who has committed suicide, because they don't feel like that person has gone to heaven, or that person violated some God law. My reaction to that is always, the person who wants to kill themselves is obviously not in their right mind. All right. And so that is then that we're not going to, we can't make them responsible for that act. And sometimes for some people, it's the only release they're going to have. It's the only relief they're going to have. They feel that it is so painful, they need to not be here anymore. And so those two things I want us to address how we react to people who have lost loved ones, and the other is, how do I grieve this? And are there any resources?
Yes, thank you. I really appreciate you putting that at the forefront, because a suicide loss is a loss, like any other loss that we have in our lives, and any other death that we may have had in our lives. A life was lost, and it's appropriate for us to grieve in that same way, and to give ourselves that space to grieve and to start to heal in the same way that we would for any other loss. The unfortunate thing is that because of the way that suicide is perceived, it tends to be treated differently, but it's still a grief and loss. It's still a death. And we want to ensure that we consider the same things that we would for any other loss, that we look for those supports that are needed. Like we talked earlier, being able to seek grief and counseling for yourself, for your family members, to still honor the person the way that you would in any other way, and allow that process to continue. And the other thing is just, I'm trying to recall that's the second part of your question. The resources available is that those are available. Again, believe it or not, 988 is also a resource for that, because it is, someone that you can talk to on the other line. But we have our local, and your local from wherever you're watching. I encourage you to look for your local resources through your county mental health department, because through the county mental health departments, we have different interventions and different support services that can help someone who is grieving or who needs grief support. And so I encourage you to become aware before you need it of those resources that are available locally that you can visit. I know in our county we have prevention and early intervention services, and I refer many people to those for support after a loss.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing those things with us. We also, because this is the internet, we also have people who are watching from different countries, and et cetera, et cetera. There are countries who still criminalize suicide. If you're watching us from those particular countries, we just want to encourage you to advocate and champion changing it. I know Nigeria, for example, just changed theirs. And so it's no longer being criminalized. And so it is important that we all hands on deck, we all participate in this. If you have lost someone through suicide, please grieve the person like you would have grieved anyone who just died, no matter how they died. All right. So like Sonia said, it's not a time to for shame. You have to go through the process. And please, let's stop shaming people who have lost loved ones and start telling them what the Bible said it's this, and what did this one say. The the person is dead, the person is no longer here, and that is definitely a loss. It is not for you to judge anyone. It is for you to have compassion. Let's live this world with compassion. Maybe sometimes if we've been so compassionate, maybe we wouldn't have lost that person, because our system, our society has become very toxic. It has become quite adversarial, and so we want to begin to create spaces where people can be safe, when people can be safe, when people can say, okay, maybe I can live here, I can be seen here, they can hear me here. And I hope you've heard something from us today that you can utilize in as you move forward. Sonia, is there any last minute words you would like to say, any last minute resources, anything that we haven't covered? And I know that we are a little bit over time. Thank you for staying. Yeah,
yes, thank you. Thank you for staying. No, like I said, in some of my trainings, I say, if you take nothing else away from what you heard today, know that 988 is that resource for you. That if you can just remember those 3 numbers, dial them, text them, and be able to be connected to resources. The other thing is to educate yourself on your local resources that are available to you as well. And the last thing I would say is let's just normalize talking about it. Let's make it okay to not be okay and to talk about it. And thank you for giving us a space to be able to do that.
Thank you so much. Let's normalize it. Normalize this. There's no shame in this. Let's normalize it. It's important that we can talk about it. The stigma, we need to remove that stigma and begin to say, look, if you have high blood pressure, or you have some kind of issue with you're going to seek help. You're right. And we're going to talk about it. So why don't we talk about mental health issues? Mental health issues are health issues too. And so we need to talk about them. Thank you so much for sharing space with me today. You've been wonderful. And I will see you next time. Please hold while we end. I'm going to end the stream. Thank you, everyone who has joined us from YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn. Thank you. And bye for now. Till I see you again next time.